So it was interesting. It was, I had planned to go a completely different direction because I was sort of unfolding a theme. And when I was having my quiet time a couple weeks ago, I had a vision, the scene from the War Horse movie that came out, I think it was 2014. And I'll get to that scene eventually in my message. And he spoke to me, I want you to watch the movie again, and I'm going to show you some things fresh. And so I'm going to be sharing a good portion of the message that I shared in 2014, because he told me to. I don't often do that, but he told me to, and he's going to adjust it as we go along, and some things that he did share with me. And so I went to watch it. I've been trying to find time all week, and so I finally was going to, I think it was yesterday, I finally found the time. So I put the movie, because we have it, into the CD player, and definitely, Gary, the CD player is broken, because it played the movie in two sides, and then it was doing all this crazy stuff, so I couldn't even watch it. So I'm like, okay. So I said, okay, I'll go and try and find it free on YouTube. That didn't happen because you had to do all this crazy stuff, and I'm not open up to whatever that is, forget that. And so then I said, okay, I'll just plain rent it. So I went to rent it and plug it in my TV. All the power went off in my house.
Oh my goodness.
So now I'm ticked off. Not ticked off, like, just like, okay, there is no way all this is happening. Somebody doesn't want me to see this movie and what you want to speak to me in it. So I just used my phone and watched the movie. That was an hour ordeal to do all that, but I finally got to it and watched the movie because he told me to. That's why I was that persistent. It wasn't because it was a good idea and I needed to see the movie again. So tonight's message is called Hearts of Covenant. And where we go at the end, he will decide, but he's the one that said, bring drums, bring staff, so he's got something in mind. So Father, I just pray by your Spirit that you would breathe forth what you want us to hear tonight, and that includes me, because you are covenant itself, and your heart is fully covenant love, and you have called us to live in and from your covenant heart. So Father, I pray a fresh deposit in our hearts tonight. Even things that we may know, that I might say again, let us hear it afresh by your Spirit. For this hour that we're in 2022, this movie all the way back then was prophesying to where we are now. Where we were then and where we are now. So let us hear it afresh and apply it for this hour on earth, in our lives individually and as a family, assigned at this gate of this nation. In Jesus' name, amen. And so we know the story, and I'm just going to pretend like we've never heard the movie before, okay? But obviously you have. I didn't remember every piece, just beyond, a lot of it until I watched it. So here is this magnificent horse that was being purchased for 30 guineas. And the man, as we know, this man who owned this farm needed a plow horse, but he was stricken with this horse, just taken by it. Magnificent horse, he couldn't pass it up. And so as we know, the boy, he brings it home, and this boy, his son, Albert, had seen this horse, from birth and growing up with its mother. And so now here's this magnificent horse. And so his son is the one who trains it. And I so love the fact that he trained it to come and respond and do everything that he wanted him to do with this whistle, And he knew that whistle. He knew the whistle of his owner, just like we are the sheep, and we know our shepherd's voice and not the stranger's voice. That's really so important in this hour, because there are many voices telling us many things. even about the current war situation in Russia and Ukraine. We won't go there, but there's many voices releasing many things, and much of it is false. And so this whistle was the whistle of one who loved and cared for the horse. He loved and cared for the horse. And the horse was safe. And they had formed this deep heart devotion to each other. And you know what? That took time. And it was purposeful, and it was intentional. It wasn't by chance. It was purposeful and intentional. And, you know, that is just so key in this hour, because God is calling us. And pardon me if I pause here and there, because I'm skipping over things, because I'm not trying to preach the message. I'm just using some notes so I don't forget key points. I want to hear what God is saying, even in this moment now. Do you follow what I'm saying? Because it's so important that we hear his voice, and that we respond only to his voice. I cannot say that enough right now. There are many things calling to us, and we cannot afford to respond to anything but the Master's voice. And I'm just waiting, because it's going to be a different night, because I'm determined to only bring forth what he wants, and not what I think, and not what I feel, and not what. And so, you know, I thought it was interesting. It struck me the first time, and it struck me the second time that I saw it. And that is, you know, the 30 guineas. We know that the price paid for Jesus was 30 shekels. I mean, there's tons in this movie. There is so much prophetically in this movie. It's crazy. And of course, that was what they said he was worth. And that's what they said this horse was worth. Of course, he was worth far more than that, but that's what he paid for it. And so, you know, what is the other piece of that? We could go on for hours with that whole message, but that's not the message tonight of our value and worth. However, if we don't align our lives with the value and worth that he says we are, which is he purchased us with his blood, we'll never enter into the fullness of why we are here. Purchased with his blood for a purpose. Number one, purpose we know, to be sons and daughters. 2, he left us here to become kings and priests, to be about his business. Period. It's not about us, it's about him. Though he cares for us, you follow what I'm saying? There's a balance there. So, we know that one of the ways that the boy had established relationship, and I love the scenes which were throughout the movie, the beginning and the end anyways, because the whole middle was the journey, but how he would put his nose right up to the horse's nose, and they would gaze into each other's eyes. And that's exactly as we know. We all know these things, but he wants us. The invitation is so close. What are you doing so far off in a distance? You're seated with me in heavenly places. I'm just a glance here. He's here. We're always like, whoa, and he's like, I'm right here. Put your face to my face. Look right into my eyes. My blood purchased you that right. You don't have to stand at this difference down some big hall and look at me way over there. He's invited us just like that. To literally smell him. To breathe his breath. To look into those fiery eyes. And there's the deposits that are made from that. And so what is that? That's his covenant desire for us. And from that place, he establishes so deep in our hearts and then comes through our gaze. And so there was that eye-to-eye covenant love, face-to-face devotion that was formed and established. Those that stand off like this because they live in some place of whatever that we're not worthy, whatever it may be. I did this or I did that or whatever it may be. I'm not going there because that's not tonight's teaching. Come up close, face to face. He came for that. He came for that. David wrote about it. He wrote about this out of this deep heart love response that he had found with the Lord. He wrote in Psalm 89, "This forever gentle love of God overwhelming me. Here's my chorus. Your palace of praise is built to last forever. Your faithfulness is firm, rising up to the skies. I heard the Lord say, David wrote, my covenant has been made, and I'm committed forever to my chosen one, David. You see, we need to hear that for ourselves. My covenant has been made, and I'm committed forever to my chosen one. Jen, Cherish, Mary, Lupin, Peter, David, Darren, Gary, Karen, and on, and on, and on, and on. So we're not speaking it in a second tense or a third tense, but the first tense. I have covenant with God, and in that my heart is steadfast. My heart will not be moved, because his is not. And so we, our hearts after God, that covenant, that place is his devotion and his commitment to us. In Song of Songs, there's this passion again. And she cries out, I must have you. She's saying this to the bridegroom, to the king. I must have you with no veil between us. Absolutely none. Anything in our lives, anything in our hearts, anything in our conscience that would try to keep us separate or that we couldn't see him fully, this is the time that God is removing those things. I'm not going to get into all those things tonight. I just bypassed several pages of all of that because that's not what tonight is about. But I will say just this, that there are veils of religion. We're not going to go into the depths of it. There are veils of shame. There are veils of fear. That he's saying, let me rip those off of you or remove them yourself as I show them to you. It could be the thinnest veil. It could be the thickest veil. It could be generational veils. But 1 second in his presence, gone, consumed with his passionate eyes of fire. And what is that dove eye? The dove eyes, we know, no peripheral vision. They only look straight ahead. Straight ahead. Right into his eyes. See nothing else. Why do they have to put this on a horse's eyes? Because it sees every which way, but not a dove's eyes. That's why he says your eyes like a dove. And so, that's again back to what the glance of your eye. What was that eye? Completely focused. It wasn't a wandering eye. It was looking at all the things just straight ahead. So, focused, steady, purposeful gazes and hearts. So now we know the story. The farm needed to be plowed. They needed to be plowed so they could plant crops, so they could pay the rent. So if they didn't plant these crops, they wouldn't have the ability to pay the rent and they would lose the farm. So this horse was too young, number one, and it was not a plow horse. It was a thoroughbred, prime horse. But there was no other horse. He was it. Sometimes we're it. So I'm saying we're the ones called up. So we know a whole bunch of people from the village came. They were naysayers, speaking curses over him, curses over the father, curses over the mother, curses over the land, curses over the horse, curses over the son. It's not in him, it's not in them, it can never happen. But out of relationship and out of devotion that these two had formed together, this horse that was not created to do this, did what they said was impossible. Did what was said was impossible. And they accomplished it. And one of the guys said, oh, that thick stubbornness that's in the son like the father, to believe for the impossible. There's a stubbornness, but not an unholy stubbornness. It's really a perseverance that when we, for the king, we will believe for the impossible. And so it was a good thing in that situation because what he had was focus and determination. So the horse did for the boy out of passion what he had not been bred to do. And so what the Lord was speaking to me as I was watching that, as I was taking fresh notes, this is what he spoke to me. He said, a thoroughbred serving its owner out of bonds of love and devotion in a field called ordinary, called to do an impossible task meant for a plow horse. He became a hero that saved the family farm. serving seemingly below what he was created for, until this horse and his owner were completely exhausted, until the job was done. And in that joint venture together, character was forged in both of them, a bonding between them that was so deep in their hearts. It forged them together as a unified team. And God is forging unified teams in difficulties and impossibilities, seeming impossibilities in our own strength. But out of that face-to-face with him, yoked with him, nothing is impossible. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so, there have been naysayers in our lives, have there not been? How they view you. But we need to live out of heaven's eye view, because we have been made, as we know, in his likeness. We can say we know that, but we have to live like that. Because we are truly a generation that has never been seen before. Each generation is its own generation. This generation has not been seen before. They said that in the book of Acts, and on and on and on it goes. We're a generation that's not been seen before. And the generations coming together, when they're truly mingled out of devotion, oh my gosh. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he's always been the generation of God. It's never meant to be just this, just this, just this. Oh, we're the generation. No, it's always been the generations coming together. So, it's, he enables us to do from who we are in him the impossible. And he gives us victory in him from relationship. Everything's from relationship. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, and we know it, we know it, we know it, we know it. But it's until, until it becomes every part of us. Until every breath we take is from that relationship, because that's how Jesus lived. Jesus didn't live in compartments. He lived in the breath of his Father. He established it early in the morning, and he walked his day through it. And so, the horse, we know, was sold. The big storm came, the storm came, killed all the crops. Now, we're going to lose the farm. What is he going to do? The war, at the same time, starts. And he goes into the town and he sells the horse to be a war horse. Of course, he's not a war horse. He's not a plow horse, and he's not a war horse. And so, the boy, again, looks into the horse's eyes, and he makes a covenant promise. I swear I will find you and bring you home. You see, that was really the main theme of the whole movie. I swear I will find you and bring you home. I leave the 99 for the one. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son. What does it sound like? It's an echo. It's an echo. I swear I will find you and I will bring you home. Wherever our prodigals are, it does not matter. No matter what this situation, it doesn't matter how far, how deep they have stumbled into darkness or walked away. Our covenant alignment with God and our prayers as mothers or fathers or brothers or sisters or cousins or nephews or just a brother and sister in Christ is more powerful than any scheme and plot of hell. And we must be convinced of that. We are covenant people with a God that says to us and says through us, I swear I will find you and I will bring you home. And I'm sorry if I'm loud, but I feel his passion. When I get like that, it's because I feel him. I feel his burning heart prophesying out. And so I'll find you. And then he had his father's war ribbons that his mother had given him. I thought it interesting. It was red and white. I'm not going to go there, but you know, the blood of the Lamb, the water from his side. Anyways, you know, just covenant, come out of his side, saved from his side, birth out of his side. That's a whole nother message. So anyways, that's the last thing he does is he pulls it out and he ties it on the horses. He goes to war, and that's another whole story. It's a whole prophetic piece. The red and the white. Overcome. Blood of the Lamb. So living in and under his covenant promises. You are mine. We know it. They're engraved in the palm of his hand. Divine ownership. Every time we look at our hands, we should say, we're divinely owned. We're divinely owned. We're divinely cared for. We're divinely loved. And we have to also remember that when we reach out and we touch somebody, we're reaching out with a divine hand of covenant. Everything that's in his hand is in our hand. When we start believing that, we're going to see the things we've been crying out for, healing the sick, raising the dead in ways that is going to astound us. And so, you know, he says in Song of Songs, suddenly he transported me to his house of wine. My eyes opened to see his unfurled banner of victory. It's his unrelenting love, and written upon the flag flying over my heart. I'm overwhelmed and undone. So here is this banner, it says, over us of victory, and it's his unrelenting love flying over our hearts. That's the banner we get up and go out under every single day. A banner of unrelenting love. If it's unrelenting love, what's impossible for him? If it's his unrelenting love, he will care for us. To live in the reality of this, his flag flying over our hearts. Oh my gosh. What a picture. So it's 1914, and this horse is now getting ready. He's being put in the army, and this horse is going to travel across the English Channel to a land it does not know, just like the men that are going into battle. An unknown land, and he's going to be going on to the very front lines of war. You know, everybody's cheering as the young lads are going off. And you know, in some of these scenes, just to be honest with you, I just sat and sobbed my eyes out, probably because of Ukraine and Russia and everything that's taking place in the nations of the world right now. I sobbed my way halfway through this movie, partly because of the movie and partly because the scenes that were taking place, it was like I kept getting transported back and forth to what's going on in our life now to this movie. It's like they should release it again, quite frankly, and put it in the cinemas again. I'm being honest with you. So he's sold to a British Army captain who was very tender-hearted and promised the boy, I will take care of him. And so there's this other captain, and there was all this competition. I'll get the better horse, I'll get the better horse, you know. And so there's this black stallion, his name is Choctaw, and they become friends. You know, they become buddies. And so now they're in the battlefront. And horrible, not going to go into that scene. Almost everybody and almost all the horses, everybody's killed except Joey's still alive, the horse Joey, and Choctaw, and a handful of others. And they're taken captive by the German army. And they were determined to stay together and not be separated. But they were going to be killed because they said these horses are just a waste. They're a waste, just kill them all. Kill them all. But one soldier saw their value and tried to save them. And the best he could do is said, oh no, could we not use them to pull the wagon of the wounded? Sort of like an Esther deal, you know. Could you not just let him pull the wagon of the wounded? So he intervenes and spares their life. That's what they end up doing. So, however, before they begin to do that, now, the horse, who was never bred to be a plow horse, but because of the need of his owner and his passion and devotion was trained by the boy to be a plow horse. Now, let's go back to that scene. When the boy first tried to put the harness on the horse was like, what the heck? Never experienced anything like this. And so the scene was so beautiful. It was so beautiful because this is what the Father does. You have to see the Father in all of it. It wasn't just a movie. It was so much in it. So he takes this big harness and he holds it like this and he puts it over his own neck and says, see, Joey, see? It's not that high. And then he lifts it up and puts his nose to the horse's nose and says, just put your nose through, Joey. Just put your nose through. And because of that face-to-face trust and that nose-to-nose and eye-to-eye, Joey's eyes were locked with Albert, and he was able to just put it over him. Trust. To be shaped into what we never thought we would be asked to be or do. And so, here's the scene. And Joey shows them how to do it. They're trying to put it on chalkboard. This big black steering, they have nothing to do with it. Joey comes over, shows them how to do it. Puts his head right out. They put it right on. Showing chalkboard. This is how. It's okay. You trust me, I trust you. We got this. It's so powerful. And not only that, had he not done that, they would have killed him. So he saved his life. And so, there are circumstances. We can say, Lord, why am I doing this? Why am I in this job? Why am I in this situation? Why am I in this place? Why have you given me this assignment? I don't even get this. What are the circumstances? It doesn't make any sense. Sickness, loss of the position, it's too hard, it's below us, it's too hard. Children, family, things we weren't created to do or be. I never thought life would be like this. I never thought following you would be like this. And we need to remember that he takes these things that he allows to shape us and form us into his likeness, and he's literally shaping us for the destiny that he wrote in our book of life. And we can't afford, as Rick Joyner says, to waste one trial, test, or situation. So our experiences also train us to help another. Let me show you. Let me show you. You know why it's not often happened? Is because we don't have, so many places don't have covenant heart relationship. They don't have koinonia in a church. So there isn't the trust of face to face. Let me show you. People won't even let people get close enough to let them show you. I'll tell you what, this harvest is going to be all about that. Because the harvest isn't coming into a strange, distant church where people say, hey, how you doing? See you next Sunday. And they haven't been coming, they're not going to come. They're coming to family. They're coming to covenant. They're coming to safety. They're coming to where every single thing that we have been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we will allow God to use for somebody else. Our mistakes, we're not ashamed to say, I blew it. Would you like to learn? We can't just talk about our victories. We have to talk about where we blew it. And the God of redemption. So, covenant love and relationships where we show how, So he's asked to pull the wagon. When was he asked us to pull the wagon of the wounded? I'm not doing that. That's too difficult. I'm not going to go and pray with that one. I don't want to hear this story again. I've heard it 20 times. Or whatever it may be. You follow what I'm saying? This is below us. I wasn't made for this. But it's the Philippians 2 posture of humility and confident in the Father's love. And honestly, what else were we put on this earth to do? This is getting in my way. This is getting in my plans. I got plans, you know, God. And he says, really? Really? Go ahead, go about it. You may be blessed, but you won't come into the fullness of what my covenant has, because covenant works both ways. And so I'm telling you, we're in a time, it's really a fine-tuning season that we're in. So now he goes to the second owner, who's a captain, who's also nice, because the first guy's killed, and he's killed. Now the third owner is a German army guy. And so there's these two young lads, who, I'm going to skip over that whole scene, but except for the part, because there's a whole big story that led to that. But now there's these two lads who escape from being captive by the Germans, and they take off with the two horses, and they run and hide in a windmill. But they find them the next morning, shoot them, but they don't know the horses are in there. They just find the two kids, the two young boys. One was 14, and they didn't care that back then. They don't in many nations today. They'll take them whatever age. Abduct them, put them in the army. Horrendous. We won't even go there. But, so there they are. They're brought out and shot. That's it. Now the horses are in the windmill by themselves. And the girl that lives in this farm finds them and is feeding them and caring for them without her grandfather's knowing. And then eventually she tells him. And she becomes the fourth caretaker. And now here's another one, loving, kind, tender, and she's all excited because this is a girl who's been sick since she was young. Her mother used to be a horse rider, but she wasn't supposed to be able to ride because of how sick she was, and she's got all this joy, and oh my God, she's so happy until the army comes through and takes them, takes all their food, takes everything, and takes the horses to pull artillery. Now, the thing about pulling artillery was, again, these horses were not made for that. And basically it says you will pull, the whole thing was the horses that were brought in to pull the artillery just were used until they dropped dead. And the next one is brought in its place. It's horrendous. The story of the war horses is heartbreaking. And so, as they bring these two horses in, the man who's over the care of all the horses sees again through his eyes the magnificence of these horses. The magnificence of these horses. And all he can say, he's walking and he's saying as he's taking the horses, it's a pity. It's a pity. It's a pity. Because he knew their end. He knew with these magnificent horses. How many times have we seen the enemy leading somebody down a path and the church shakes its head and says, it's a pity. It's a pity. It's a pity. Say no more on that one. It's been said about me. It's a pity. Oh, that we would be the rescuers he's called us to instead of saying it's a pity or all of our opinions of how they got there, which really doesn't make any difference. It's how did they get rescued? Like, I deserve to be saved? Never forget who you were when you were found. So, he did not want to see their magnificence wasted on the battlefield, dying a needless death. And you know, so it is with true covenant, heart covenant, mothers and fathers in the kingdom, and sons and daughters, to have the same posture, to help others not waste their lives and their calls. Those we can start strong but not finish, or burn out, or lose vision, or our hearts get wounded, or die for whatever. You know, we have to have that same, they're magnificent. We have to see the magnificence in each person. Because the truth of it is we've all been made in his image. So the eyes of covenant see the magnificent in each one. When somebody else can only see the brokenness. We see the brokenness, we don't deny it, but we see past it. And we ask the Lord, show us the magnificence in that one. Now, then those that don't want help, and there's then nothing you can do. You follow what I'm saying? People don't want it. That's why Jesus asked people, what do you want? Because if they didn't want it, he wasn't going to waste his time. On what do you want? Whatever they asked, they got. Show me one place in the Bible that they didn't get what they asked for. Every single time. So they're put into the hands of, again and again, these horses. And you know what it is? It's really, people saw their value and then attempted to love and protect and care for them every single time. Except for the army guys, you know. And so it's the picture really of the Father's faithfulness to us. We can put in all kinds of situations, but he will come again and again. I could stop right now. We could all stand up and each give our own little sermon of all the ways that God has been faithful to us. Many of those things we know about each other. Some of those things, many of those things we don't know. You follow what I'm saying? Some things nobody will ever know. There's things nobody will ever know about my life. There's things in my life I have never told one person. And it's not because of shame. It's because the Lord said, you don't ever need to tell that unless I tell you to. You follow what I'm saying? I'll tell you what, I only want to tell something or write something that's going to bring glory to the Father. With ones who have cared for us, encouraged us. And if it has not been for, you know, the situations we've been through and the people that we've been through and the people that we've formed covenant with in the body of Christ, and then to be able from that become that to others. It's so crucial. When I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day and they were talking about how they'd never had a father and a mother, you know, in the body of Christ. And I sat there and I began to, then after that conversation, think back about how many fathers and mothers the Lord has given me in the body of Christ. But it made up for the father who never cared for me, you follow what I'm saying, except in practical ways, and then left and abandoned me. And the mother who couldn't care for me because of her being sick. So I really, you follow what I'm saying, sort of cared for myself, me and my sisters. People don't know all my story. They don't need to know all my story. But when I think of my walk and how many fathers and mothers that would spend hours, I think of Ira and Sharon who would drive and come and stay for a week just to pour into my life, just to love on me and to love on this family. John Metcalf, Russ and Nancy, Bob Coombs, on and on and on I could go. And there's some who've never had any. My God, Greg and Julie Crawford, on and on we could go. The leaders at Morning Star have poured into my life, poured into this family. Some have never had that. This family has been blessed with fathers and mothers again and again and again who were true covenant-hearted fathers and mothers. Some have never known that. And to honor them and to keep their legacy going, meaning fathers, sons and daughters become like fathers and mothers. Do you follow what I'm saying? That's true legacy. We want to look like our Father in heaven, like Jesus, our elder brother, bringing honor. This is what it looks like. So, we're at the place. They told him, bring the black horse. You know, they're at the artillery. They got to pull the wagons. Well, they look at the two horses. The black horse looks the biggest and the strongest. They bring them up. We know the scene. But that's when I completely lost it in my living room. Completely, I couldn't even see. I could barely see my phone. And because this horse couldn't do it, because he had a wounded leg, and the person wouldn't, the leader wouldn't hear it, who didn't care, that the one who knows the horses. And oh God, help us to hear the ones who know a situation more than us, because we think we know. But somebody else really knows the situation. I got it. I don't need your input. Oh, we do need body life because nobody sees it all. We hear in part. We need each other's part. And so he wouldn't listen to him. But again, Joey bursts forth and takes his place. Runs right up. They pull the black horse out, and now the scene of Joey. I can't even go there because if I stop talking about that scene, I'll end up on the ground bawling my eyes out. I know it. But that is when I started to cry, because I'm seeing that. I was flashing to what's taking place over there, and oh my gosh, and then crying at the scenes of so many. How many times have us, you, or the people around us, both in the body and outside of the body, struggling under the weight of religion, struggling under the weight of man's programs, trying to earn approval, trying to earn love, trying to earn a place of recognition, whether it be in the world or in the church. It does not matter. We don't have to earn any of it. We are already recognized by the most amazing eyes ever. As long as we're in that gaze, the taunts of man and religion will not move us. Because we see his face, we see his eyes, we hear his voice, and everything else is just blocked out because we get dull eyes. And it does not matter, but we will go through those tests. He will allow us to go through those tests because it tests our heart, and it forms our character, and it forms our nature until we can say, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. They know not what they say. We release forgiveness. We will not be pulled from this gaze. We will not be pulled from this posture of love so that it can be more shaped in us that love will be our response. And love doesn't mean always gushy-gooey. Love is confrontational. Love will not allow somebody to go over the cliff and go into the pit. Oh, let's let them just keep falling when they get to the bottom and they only have up to look. That's a bunch of religious. That's a doctrine of demons. If I had $1 for every time I heard that one, oh my gosh, Jesus help us. So anyways, my father, when I look at my life, the rescue lines that have been sent to me before I went over a cliff or when I was going down, and you are not going down, and I was literally pulled out. We're all shaped by each other. So, covenant devotion means taking another's place, counting the cost, without hesitation. You don't even think about it. That horse just ran right in. You follow what I'm saying? Didn't think. It knew that its best buddy was wounded. Just run in and take its place. It did, well, maybe. Well, can I really? You see, covenant love responds. And so, because it's the heart of God within us, like Jonathan and David. And of course, Jesus, the greatest example of all, taking our place on the cross. This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased, the most powerful statement, true sonship. So, and we saw it displayed. We saw it in the Bible displayed at the foot of the cross. Who was there? We know it. You hear me preach it all the time. Why? Because it's critical and crucial. Are we going to abandon him, or are we going to be with him? You realize that's part of what's going on the earth right now and in the church. Who's really with me? Who's really for me? Every time we water down a doctrine in this and bow our knee, LBGTQ, whatever else it may be, do you follow what I'm saying? Don't vote biblically. Every time we bow our knee to something that is not a biblical worldview, we have distanced ourselves and distanced ourselves and distanced ourselves and distanced ourselves from covenant. And yet we want to call upon his covenant blessings and promises. Well, you're way over there. Why is this happening to me? Because you're way over there. Just say it. So, who ran to the tomb? Who didn't abandon him in the trial? Who was at the cross? Who do we have covenant with? A spirit of sonship, true kingdom, true family. Not here today, gone tomorrow. Covenant devotion, there's far too much of that. I'm just going to change churches and try church. I'm just going to whatever, and I'm not dressing this family. We've been to everything together. So I'm talking, do you follow what I'm saying? I'm not talking to this family. I'm just talking. I'm talking because the harvest is coming in, and this is what they have to come into. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's honestly, I was like, why am I going to speak to this? The family knows this, but he wants us, because I'll tell you what, and as I was hearing today in the School of the Prophets, this is going to be challenged like never before. In places before where we stood strong, I'm telling you what's being released on the earth, what's coming against the church, what's being released in the, what I'm telling you, if we don't get our faces like this, and I don't say it for a fear tactic because I don't like fear and I don't like to try and stir stuff up, but I am a speaker of truth. And it is going to continue to get darker, which means we need to be brighter. How do we get brighter? Face to face with him in the glory until everything in us is light and love in covenant. And when destruction is knocking at our door and it's trying to get our children and it's trying to take everything from us, we will not bow our knee because we're in covenant with the covenant-keeping God, and we will not give an inch for some false whatever. They talked today about one church that used to have 14,000 members, bowed its knee to the LGBTQ agenda and continued to bow, and it dismantled the entire church. One little thing, one little crack, the enemy gets his foot in, and that's the way it is in our life. One little thing, one little compromise. I'll put off time with you today, God. I need to go to my cell phone and check out my emails. Excuse me, and I'm not trying to be legalistic, but I think the mail from heaven is far more important than that. Just saying. I'm not being legalistic. It's like, really, honestly, how do we begin our day? If we begin our day with the news, we're setting ourselves up for a pretty crappy day, because we need to read the fresh headlines of heaven and what he is saying before we ever look at what's going on in the world. Why? So we reestablish our gaze, and then we can look and process with him. Not without him, with him. We only have courage when we're looking with him, because even the Word of God says men's hearts will fail. Some men's hearts will fail, and even the elect. So we're entering into a time, when, so it's dark, it was bad, it was dark then, I mean, it was there in the thick of the battle. So now it's 1918, the horse has been, they've been in this battle for 4 years. The horse has been over there for 4 years. That's pretty amazing. The boy kept his promise. Now he's there looking for him. He's in the war. Doesn't really want to be in the war, but he's looking for his horse. Why? Because he was keeping his covenant promise. I will find you and bring you home. I will find you and bring you home. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I remember my mother in the Lord, my first mother in the Lord, Mary Bragdon. What I saw her do to pursue and go after her heroin-addicted, prostituted daughter, I have never forgotten. And she never stopped. It was 5 or 6 programs later, all over this nation. First time I go to her home. Mary, what's all these locks up and down your door? I know you're not a fearful woman. You've got like no fear of nothing. Nothing. Satan himself wouldn't come in your house. And she said, oh, that's from my daughter, because she comes in when I'm gone and steals everything and goes and buys drugs, and then I have to go and drive everywhere and find where she hawked it and buy it back. Over and over again, she bought her furniture back, bought her jewelry back, bought her silverware back, bought her china back, bought her art back, over and over again. Me and her daughter became very close, born the same day of the year, I think it was 2 years ago, May 12th, May 12th. We can't make this stuff up. And she was never jealous of me, no matter how close I was with her mother. And I went all over the nation with Mary, visiting her daughter, including to the place that she was finally set free. I can't tell you how many years, but that heart of covenant love never gave up. It set something in me. She gave me a print, put it on my wall, and she said, "This is how I live my life, Donna." And she said, "This is how you're to live yours." And it was the communion table. And on it said, "Lord, bless me, break me, and pass me around amongst your people." That's how she lived her life. Extravagant. Once a week she would come, leave her job, close her whole shop down. She had her own business. 2 places, Boston and Salem. Shut her whole business down to come and have lunch with me. Take me to lunch. And for that 1 hour in Beverly, she poured her life out into mine, or listened to whatever I was going through. I remember being in situations, calling her up, I can't do it, I just can't do it. And the words would come with wisdom. I never knew that growing up. I never had that. I had no idea. I was never even told in all of my childhood that I was loved, not once. And I don't say that as a sob story, because I hear it all the time from my father. You see, what story are you going to write about? Everybody could write their sob stories. I once was, but now I am. I once wasn't loved, but now I am. We were told we were mistakes. What do you do with that? You find Jesus, and he comes right to you and says, "Remember when that happened?" A prophet didn't say it to me. The prophet said it to me. Why? Because he saw every detail of my life. Well, that changes right now. Just like that, it's done. Why do I believe in supernatural deliverance and healing in a moment? Because it's happened so many times to me from the Father's great love. So, I didn't plan to say any of this, but see, like I said, I'm not trying to follow my notes. So, there they are. Where am I? Yes, the horse took his place. So, the British are running away from the Germans. Oh, the British are running away. There's all this calamity going on. In the midst of all of this, Shockpaw dies. Can't walk anymore. He just drops to the ground. And there's Joey standing over him. Stays with him to the very last minute, the very last breath. And then he's alone as that guy takes off. And now the scene is this tank. All the tanks are coming in. And this horse starts to run until he's pinned, he's cornered, and there's no place for him to go. And the tank just keeps coming, and the tank just keeps coming, and the tank just keeps coming. And he's either going to be steamrolled and crushed, because they don't care, they're just running over a horse, they don't care about anything. The horse jumps. Remember, he's this magnificent beast, and he's filled with muscles now. 4 years in war, just bounds over the tank and starts running and running and running and running. And the next thing you know, he's on the battlefield, and he's in the trenches, and he's in the midst of all the fire, and he's running, and he's running, and he's running, and he can't make sense of where he's supposed to run because he's running in fear, and neither can we. The minute we get into fear, we can't hear right, we can't see right, and we get ourselves into all kinds of traps and snares that the enemy has set. If I could paint a picture, there'd be traps and snares. This is the path called fear. Respond to the voice of fear. There'd be all these snares that one of them would catch me. and take me hostage and hold me fast. That's what it looks like with fear. And when we respond, that's what happens. When something's coming straight at us and we have no place, we feel like we always have a place of escape, but the enemy gets us to feel there's no way out, there's no way escape, we can't see the strategy. And what happens is he wants to catch us and get our minds entrenched in our mindsets, fear and unbelief. And this is where it all begins, the fear. And then he captures our mindsets and ensnare them. And when our minds are ensnared in fear and unbelief, the rest of us begins to submit to it and respond to it. I'll tell you, that's really when sickness begins to enter into a body. Fear is an open door for every manner of evil in our life. So, where and how do we escape? The enemy would love to see us live in this a bowed down, held captive posture, barely alive spiritually, only able to cry out, not able to arise and run and be who we are created to be. He wants us to have thoughts and be prisoners of how we see ourselves, captured in barbed wire of failure and shame and rejection and comparison and envy. You see, when your mind begins to swirl in that stuff, you're caught in some barbed wire. Not if it's for a moment, but if it's a revolving thing, you're wrapped in some barbed wire. You're caught in a snare. So fear gets us into a place of captivity, and then we want to run to escape here, there, and we just keep getting more and more snared because the only fear we're to have is the fear of the Lord. We can't wrestle the change into our lives. We cannot free ourselves with our own might and strength, but it's only as we lay our minds, if you will, right on the altar, surrender our thoughts and our ways for him, and come into a fresh encounter with the Father's love, because his perfect love casts out all fear. That's why this perfect love. We run to this. We don't run away. We run to this perfect love. We look into his eyes again. We feel his breath again. We hear his whisper. We come, we run to him, right into that place of covenant love. So now this horse is caught. He's run, he's caught in the barbed wire. The more he runs, the more he thrashes, the more he's caught till he's held fast and he can't move. He's completely flat on the ground. He cannot move. And the men begin to see some movement from the trenches. What's that? Is it a cow? No, I don't think. What's a cow doing out there? I think it's a cow. It's not a cow. And they finally determine it's a horse. So they said, well, let's call it. So they start going. It doesn't respond, and they start to whistle, but see, it's not the whistle of its owner, so it's still not responding. Then the other side, the German side, starts from their trenches. And so now all this calling to the horse is going back and forth, but the horse can't respond, can't do anything. So this British soldier says, listen to the horse. Listen to him. We can't leave him. There's a million places we could go with that right now. Just let that statement right there just sit for a minute, Holy Spirit. Because it wrecked me. Listen to him. We can't leave him. So the British soldier raises a truce flag. He steps out and they shoot at him. And he says to them, I'm coming for the horse. Listen to him. And the soldiers are screaming, get back, hey, they're going to kill you. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He leadeth me beside still waters. That's what he quotes as he goes out on a rescue mission. God, I can't go out there. I can't reach that person by the side of the road. Don't you know how dangerous it is? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Yea, even though in the valley, shadow of death. So, heart of compassion to free this war horse. So he's there. Now what's he going to do? He doesn't have anything. Because in his hurry, he had the flag, but he didn't have any cutters. He cries out, I need cutters! Who responds? The German side. So this guy comes out with cutters. So I'm watching this. Here's my notes from viewing too. So the German soldier brings out the cutters. And then he looks at him and he says, you know, so the American soldier's saying, well, I'm going to cut, we should just cut here, and that will set him free. And he says, no, no. See, this is why we need each other. Because somebody else, because of an expertise, they see what you don't. Because he just wanted to set him free. But this guy had experience with cutting barbed wire and what he does. He says, no, 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 see, listen, if you cut this, see how long it is? If you cut here, that will spring and it will set that and that and that off, and it will make it worse, and it will make him more wounded and hurt than he is now. We can't do that. He says, literally, we can't do it with one pair of cutters. We need two to balance it out. And the tension as you cut. Ooh, there's a sermon right in there. I'm telling you, it's like, I'm like, what? Like every single thing you could preach for a week on it. I'm telling you. So, what did they say? So he has to get, so somebody comes out from the German side, gives another set of cutters. Now they got the cutters together. Now they're strategizing together. Well, let's cut here. Well, let's cut here. And they said, the guy says, we have to start with the head. Set the head free first. Come on now. You don't even need me to preach that one. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. Let me set you free from every thought that's not like mine, that holds you captive. So, it was so amazing. I did not remember so much from the first viewing of it. As they begin to cut from the, oh my God, Jesus. As they're cutting his head free, they're saying to him, how remarkable you are. How remarkable you are. You're so magnificent. Look at this magnificent horse. How remarkable you are. For a moment, just a moment, do you not think that horse was brought back to the covenant words that used to be spoken by the boy? How remarkable you are. You're magnificent. That's how he spoke to him when he was getting him to plow and he didn't know how. You're so remarkable. You're so magnificent. We can do this. He was flashing back to covenant moments with one who loved him, hearing another voice but saying the same thing, just as we are to be an echo of our Father. As we set somebody else free. How remarkable you are. Not you're an idiot and loser. How did you get here? How remarkable you are. And that calming, those words kept that horse quiet as they cut. And then they cut the midsection, and then they cut the rear. And they said this, oh, this horse did what it was created to do, running away from danger. That's the nature of a horse. But look what it has been taught. to run into the fray, a war horse, a strange beast we have made here, meaning men. And they kept saying over and over, a remarkable horse, a remarkable horse. They had set aside their differences. This British soldier and this German soldier to rescue this horse. And they did not even know how remarkable he was until they freed him. All they saw was a horse mangled up, tied up with a ton of barbed wire. It wasn't until it was freed. Oh, how we have to set aside differences between all kinds of situations that God will allow us to work together. And as we work with individuals and work with each other, and the harvest comes in, how remarkable you are. How remarkable you are. Instead of a sign, you're nothing but a worthless, lousy sinner going to hell, how about how remarkable you are? Made in God's image, you just don't know it. But he sent me to tell you how remarkable you are. Won't you come home to the Father's house? Looking past what they are. My first pastor looked past how I was dressed, black from head to toe, with black fingernail polish, and saw in me what nobody else had ever in my life seen. He never spoke it. His posture towards me spoke it. It wasn't a church that prophesied, walked in the gifts, signs and wonders. So the Lord sets our minds and thoughts free. Then our emotions, he begins here, then our emotions, and our wills and our heart, then our whole being. He knows how and who. He speaks to us, our value and our worth. His voice quiets us, so we allow him to set us free from the snares and the schemes of the enemy. And oftentimes it takes teamwork, because we need eyes to see the magnificence within each one before we ever set them free. Because anyone can see the magnificence of the work afterwards. Anyone can see that. The lost can see that. The eyes of covenant love see like that. I need to speed up here. So, anyways, we don't have a time frame. So, where and how do we escape? Everything always comes back to his covenant love and his heart of compassion. And when we have compassion and love as the foundation in our lives, every bit of kingdom spiritual authority is released into us and through us. Because everything comes from compassion and love. And we know we're not talking about Hollywood love. So the horse, what did he have to do? He had to trust again, did he not? He had to surrender to hands he didn't even know, that calmed him and helped him. And so the Lord comes to us and he sets us free. He set us free from the snares of death. And now he's coming and he's saying, is there any last place of captivity? I'm after every little tiny bit. The Lord sees the places of our captivity like this horse. And he's saying, from this place of trust, let me cut you out of those situations. Because he wants us to run the race in victory and freedom, whole and healed for his glory, and running with no agenda but his in his kingdom. Because it doesn't matter what camp we come from. It doesn't matter as people come in, where they've come from. All that matters is, particularly in wartime, which is what we're in right now upon the earth, we set aside our differences and focus on one king and one kingdom. We have to find the common ground, and we have to fight from that place. We may not agree with every doctrine the same. Now, I'm not talking unbiblical situations, do you follow what I'm saying? But there may be a passage or two we don't agree with. But it was wartime. We're in for the fight. We're in a fight for this nation. We all know this. Every person knows this here. You know, there are people asleep, even people in the church that are asleep, that think that we're just, you know, we're good. We're good. We're not good. We're this far from a Marxist takeover. This far. And I mean it. That far. We are one step away. And so, the Brits win the horse. Now, who's going to get the horse? We said who gets it. They do a coin toss, and the Brits get the horse. And he's brought into the trench, you know, the trench, and it was in those very trenches that his owner, Albert, had been blinded, or his eyes were damaged, we know from the gas that they had released. So now, the horse is brought to the hospital, and they asked the doctor to care for him, and he said, we do not have time, he's got tetanus, he's beyond, there's nothing we can do, shoot him. And the soldier is begging, no, we can't shoot him. The doctor says, shoot him. So they're getting ready to shoot him, and that was quite an intense scene. I'm just looking for where I'm going to go with this. But the first owner, Albert's in the hospital also, and he's going, what's going on? What's all this commotion? Because he couldn't see. His eyes were in bandages. What's going on? There's a horse. There's some sort of a horse out there. What's going on? Well, they're going to kill him. And what type of a horse? Oh, he's a magnificent horse. He's a magnificent horse. A magnificent horse? Could it be? So the scene, we know, he starts to whistle. And the horse starts to respond. And everybody stops. The gun's put down. And the guy's got to obey his orders. He picks the gun up again. The boy whistles again. The horse stops and looks. The guy drops his gun. The whole crowd's, what's going on? Where's the whistle coming from? Finally, the horse shows up. I think that might be my horse. He's my horse. I can identify him. He's got 4 white socks. He's brown. And he has a white mark on his head like a triangle. All 5 marks. Shoot him. This isn't his horse. And the soldier says, wait a second, he's covered with mud. Don't waste your time. It's absolutely hopeless. Everybody's given up on that one. You know how many times we've ministered to him and it's just 4 white socks, brown, white marks, so they wash them up. There's the 4 white socks. And then they wash here, and there's the mark. And he puts his gun away. And the horse and the boy come together, nose to nose. Of course, he can't see him, but the horse can see him. And the captain says, we'll tend to your horse and treat him like the soldier he is. We'll tend to you, brother and sister, who's been wounded in the trenches while you were laying your life down for the body of Christ. But they're going to throw you out. But we'll treat you like the soldier you are. Come on. You know how many more of those are out there? Will we be that place? You see, this is all about walking in covenant love. The moment today, and every response is weighed and measured and expressed from that. You want the measure of maturity as a Christian? That is the only measure. The only measure. Not how many people you raised from the dead. Not how many presidents you prophesied over. That we live and move and have our being in him. And what is his being? Love. Covenant love. I thought it was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious and heinous. That Putin, and I don't care who said it, any person that would say this, but particularly a world leader, would say, and take the Bible and quote it. The pastor that says, well, no, any man, if you love your, you lay your life down for a friend. You give away your soul. Whoa! If you could read what was in that. I'm not going to say it because we're in public here. God help us, and Lord have mercy, mercy, mercy on that man. My God in heaven. And I don't hate the man. I have nothing against him. I actually do pray for him. But I hated that statement. That he would take this and use it in a defiling way. Twisting it. And trying to align it with the kingdom of darkness. God have mercy on that man for that statement. And I wish him no evil. Absolutely wish the man no evil. Just so you understand, and anybody who listens to this, it's not my place. God is judge. I am not. So how do we see each other? How do we see our past wounds? How do we see these places? You know? Do we have the shepherd's heart? Do we have his whistle of covenant? Will we look for, will we look for him in each other? Will we look for his marks of covenant? Will we look for, if you will, servants' hands that they're pierced as spirit beings? They're pierced, they're loosing his heavenly light. Are our feet pierced with holy light, walking on the highway of holiness and truth? Have we been washed as we posture ourselves again and again under his covenant side, washed with his water and his blood, walking in covenant love? Being his remnant army in this hour. It's an army of covenant love with champion hearts who will be his voice and who will step forward with a whistle. With the whistle that calls them home. We'll tend your horse and treat him as the soldier that he is. I'm almost done. Here's where an army that fights together, church, a family that has been through the trenches together, that has been through the ups and downs, the ins and outs, tested and tried again and again with every man or whatever, and you just keep going, you just keep walking, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So here they were, they'd been on the battlefronts. Now the battle is over, the war is over, but only the officers' horses are going to get shipped back. So now he's going to lose his horse again, because he's going to go home, but he can't bring his horse with him. So he's going to auction. So all of his comrades put in the money and raise 29 pounds to bid at the auction, and they all go with him. And so it starts out and a butcher is there. If you remember that? So they're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He had 29 pounds, and the butcher bids 30. So he's lost to the butcher who's going to buy this magnificent horse and slaughter him for horse meat. Oh, that's what the enemy wants to do. Comes after everything and everyone that's special. Make nothing but mincemeat out of them. Not on our watch. So, so then you got the butcher, and that's like those who don't see our value. Just sit in the pews, just do whatever, make my ministry go, used, whatever, you never really valued, you never were really worth anything. So then you go to the grandfather who comes up and he bids 100 pounds. Of course he gets it. He said, that's the magnificent horse. That's the miracle horse. I must have that horse. And nobody's going to outbid him 100 pounds. And he's living in the past. His granddaughter was the only thing he had left. She died finally from her sickness. So sad. This horse, he says, is all I have left of her. So he now is going to take this magnificent war horse and have it live as his pet in his field to keep the memory of his granddaughter alive. What does that look like for us? Held in places of yesterday, what we used to be, people wanting to hold on to you of where God used to be, where you used to be, and not where God is now, where he might be calling you to, the deeper places. They call it reckless, but God's wooing you deeper into higher covenant, and there's adventure there. Oh no, don't go there. That's not safe. God, our life is meant to be a life of adventure. I don't want to live some boring, safe Christian life. I can't think of anything more depressing or sad or dishonoring to the King who gave his life for us. Well, what did you do? I lived a boring, safe Christian life. I never took a risk. There was never any adventures because, oh my gosh, I was going to risk it for what? So, responding in a company of people who are responding to the trumpet call of the King. But those who are not of the remnant, those who have not been forged into war horses. You were never meant to be a war horse. You're supposed to be a sheep. No! No! We begin as sheep. We don't end as sheep. We're being forged. Everything in our life has been forging us into war horses. He's coming on a horse. He's not coming on a lamb. He is the lamb. He's not returning on a sheep. He's coming on a horse, and he's saying, you're going to ride with me. You see what I'm saying? No, we just want the little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, I don't think so. And we're in a war, and we're in wartime. So, people want to keep you all in what we used to have, the memories of long ago. You know what? We get to start talking about the way God used us 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 2 months ago. We need fresh, this is what God did today. This is how he used me today. This is how I encountered him today. I don't want to hear the stories of 20 years ago unless you got a story about today. Also, do you follow what I'm saying? We can't live in yesterday. We can't be, let's go buy the war horse and set it in a little field and nice little kid, nice little horsey. I don't think so. So you see, there's all kinds of things that can take us captive. People's good intentions keep you safe. What's safe? So it not only gives them, now the horse is being taken from him. The horse escapes from the grandfather, runs to the boy. He gets the horse, he brings him back. And the boy goes over to him, quiets the horse. I found you, and you found me, and we both know we made it through. And he walked away, and the grandfather saw clearly, this is the honor. So he holds up the ribbon, remember? The ribbon? Now he's got the ribbon. That red and white ribbon? Covenant? Does this mean anything to you? That's my father's word. So he gives him the horse, and he gives him the ribbon, and he says, this is what my granddaughter would want, for you to have your horse. So now, there's no mistake in the covenant love and the devotion of the boy. And the horse. They must be together. And the truth of the matter is, many will never find and fulfill their destiny until they find their covenant family, their covenant company that they are meant to run with, however long that season is, whether it's for a season or a lifetime. There's too many that just leave and go wherever and whoever, and that's not talking to this family here. But it's the place where you're forged and you fight hell together and for each other. We would cross enemy lines to find each other. Covenant love and devotion. A horse not bred to be a farm horse or a war horse. A boy not raised for war. A whistle that formed their bond. Eye to eye, face to face, love and trust. Like the shepherd's whistle, calling so many to the safety of his loving care today. So as war horses, we're on the battlefront out of love and devotion. That's the only reason we go. Nobody in their sane mind would go to the battlefront of spiritual warfare or to a natural war. It's out of love and devotion. Where you go to protect your nation, protect your country, protect your family. He's looked us in the eyes. We've looked him in the eyes, and out of face-to-face, devoted covenant love, we respond. We respond to him. Some may say, you weren't bred or raised for this. It's impossible. You may have other naysayers. You may have those who have cursed you or will curse you. Oh, it definitely will happen. It happened to every one of Jesus' disciples, real disciples. Throughout our lives, again and again, we all can share of his tender care. How he's intercepted the enemy's plans to take us out. As the war horse had his 5 marks, Jesus has his 5 wounds, his hands, his feet, and his side. He is the ultimate war horse. He is the warrior king. And we know one day he is coming for us. The one who died that we might have eternal life to fulfill his kingdom plans. So he looks into our eyes even tonight, and face to face. Cherish, would you just jump on the keyboard and just begin to play whatever you want? And he's snorting. He's breathing his breath of new life. He's saying focus. He's saying resurrection. He's saying fearlessness. He's saying holy love and devotion. He's saying, I am the resurrection and the life. He's breathing his John 22 breath into us. Receive. But what he's speaking, I believe, over the church right now. And I know who my covenant family is. We know who our covenant family is. You're grafted into this family. When you're here and when you're not here, you're part of us. Who do we run with? Will we run in covenant? He's speaking this over the church. Who are you running with? And who will you run in covenant with? Who do we have a holy devotion with? With tender love and care, focused and fixed, with all of our hearts. Who would we say this to? I swear I will find you and I will bring you home. reason people don't want to step out and risk is because if they're caught, if something happens, who will come find them and bring them home? I swear I will find you and I will bring you home. So we are in war. And there's a season now. Mary, if you get your bagpipes, please, and you can continue to play. I was going by the Spirit, as I said. I didn't have a plan. If you want to get your drums or your staffs, whatever, because we're just going to let the Holy Spirit lead us. I've just got like a couple more sentences. And I began to hear this. Great shepherd whistling, calling us to his heart of covenant. I'll come find you! But he's calling another call. Will you be the ones that will release that cry, that will walk in covenant? So where are we? We're in a war season now on this earth. We may have dreams of peace, and always we must. But the bagpipes are calling. And I saw him as I waited on his holy mountain, the great bagpiper, the commander-in-chief, the king of the angel armies. And he's releasing a sound. And he's calling to the thoroughbreds, his royal sons and daughters, purchased with his blood. Hear the sound, he says tonight. Will you respond and arise to be the war horses that I've been training you to be? Because honestly, he said you will never know peace in your nations until you do. Because we're in a time of war, contending for his kingdom purposes. The enemy wants America, and the enemy wants every Christian in this nation. We're in the battle of our lives, and he's calling us to walk with his covenant walk, eye to eye, face to face, heart to heart, blood covenant men and women whose hearts are aligned with his cross, aligned this way in covenant and this way in covenant. And as we go out, we carry his cross within. This is what it looks like. So Mary, and you just keep playing with her, church. And saints, let's just respond to this cry, to this call as war horses. Release the Father's call to his church.
here, okay?
And if I stop, please keep going, I'll come back in. And dance and bang.
So Lord, we have heard you as the Commander-in-Chief, the Lord of Hosts. Releasing the pipes, calling us, calling the church, calling us afresh to the front lines. It's a time of war. As Rick Joyner and many others, prophetic voices in this nation, it is not a time of peace. It's the hour of the sons of Issachar to know the hour that we're in and what to do. And the hour that we're in is war. And you've called us to the front lines. Keep this gate, this nation. So we respond in song to you, O Lord of Hosts. We sing of you and your might. We align our hearts and our spirits afresh today. Oh, King of love, King of covenant love, you please release a fresh baptism of love into our hearts tonight. With courage and boldness, that we would willingly, gladly follow you wherever you bid us to.